The wine glass shattered against the marble floor, red liquid spreading like blood across Maya's pristine kitchen. Lara's hand trembled as she stared at the fragments, her heart pounding so violently she thought it might burst through her chest. Across the room, Maya laughed, completely oblivious to the storm brewing behind her best friend's eyes. "I'm so clumsy tonight," Lara forced a smile, bending to pick up the pieces. "Must be all this excitement about your anniversary." Maya rushed over with a towel, her face glowing with that infuriating contentment that came so naturally to her. "Don't worry about it, babe. Ken and I have broken so many glasses in this kitchen, we should just buy plastic ones." She squeezed Lara's shoulder affectionately. "I'm just glad you're here to celebrate with us." Ken emerged from the bedroom, adjusting his watch, looking every bit the successful architect Lara had admired from afar for 3 years. His smile was warm, genuine, completely unaware of how it made her stomach flip. "Ladies, our reservation is in 30 minutes. Are we ready?" Lara watched Maya kiss him, a quick peck that spoke of comfort and security, and something dark twisted in her chest. She had been Maya's best friend since university, had stood by her through failed relationships and career struggles, had held her hand through her father's death. And this was her reward. To watch Maya live the life Lara deserved, with the man Lara craved. The rooftop restaurant overlooked Lagos in all its chaotic beauty, light stretching endlessly into the humid night. Lara sat across from the happy couple, playing her role perfectly, laughing at Ken's jokes, toasting their love, all while her mind calculated and planned. She had tried dating other men, had tried to be happy for her friend, but nothing worked. The wanting had become a physical ache, a hunger that consumed her thoughts day and night. "Lara, you seem distant," Ken said, his eyes concerned. "Everything okay?"
"Lara, you seem distant," Ken said, his eyes concerned. "Everything okay?" She met his gaze, holding it just a second too long. "Just thinking about how lucky Maya is. Not everyone finds what you two have." Maya reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Your time will come, I promise." Actually, Ken's colleague, David, is single. "I was thinking." "No," Lara interrupted, sharper than intended. She softened her tone. "I mean, I'm not really looking right now. Work has been crazy." The lie came easily. Work at the graphic design firm was actually slow, giving her too much time to think, to scroll through Maya's Instagram posts of couple vacations and home-cooked dinners, to imagine herself in those photos instead. She had studied every detail of their relationship, knew Ken's coffee order, his favorite books, the way he liked his shirts ironed. Maya had shared everything so freely, never suspecting that every confidence was a weapon Lara was collecting. 3 days later, Lara stood outside Ken's office building, her heart racing with nervous energy. She had called Maya that morning, learning she had a client meeting across town. The timing was perfect. She smoothed her dress, checked her lipstick, and walked inside with the confidence of someone who belonged. "I'm here to see Ken Adebayo," she told the receptionist. "I'm dropping off documents from Maya." The lie opened doors. Moments later, she was in his office, surrounded by architectural models and blueprints, breathing in his cologne. Ken looked up from his computer, surprise flickering across his face. "Lara?" Maya didn't mention. "Last-minute thing," she interrupted smoothly, placing a paper bag on his desk. "She made your favorite, jollof rice with plantains. Said you'd been working through lunch too often."
His face softened with gratitude, and Lara felt a rush of power. "She's always thinking of me. Thank you for bringing this." Lara lingered, commenting on his sketches, asking intelligent questions about his projects. She had done her research, knew enough about architecture to seem genuinely interested. Ken warmed to the conversation, showing her his latest design for a hotel in Victoria Island. When her hand brushed his as she pointed to a detail on the blueprint, she felt him stiffen slightly, but he didn't pull away immediately. "You have an eye for this," he said, impressed. "Have you ever considered?" "Ken, you're the talented one," she interrupted, letting her voice drop lower. Maya so lucky to come home to someone who creates beautiful things. She left before he could respond, planting seeds she would nurture later. The game had begun, and Lara was playing to win. Over the next 2 weeks, Lara engineered 4 more encounters. A chance meeting at the supermarket where Maya shopped. Coffee at Ken's usual cafe on Saturday morning. A gym where she knew he worked out. Each time, she was friendly, appropriate, slowly becoming a familiar presence in his peripheral vision. Maya noticed nothing, too trusting, too secure in her perfect life. Then came the night Lara's plan shifted into higher gear. She called Ken at 11 p.m., sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "Ken, I'm sorry, I know it's late, but I didn't know who else to call. My mother collapsed, and I'm at the hospital, and they're saying she needs emergency surgery, and I don't have enough money for the deposit, and..." "Slow down," Ken's voice was alert, concerned. "Which hospital?" "I'm coming." "No, please, I just need, maybe if you could lend me some money. I'll pay you back, I promise." "Don't worry about that now. Send me your account details." 20 minutes later, 300,000 naira appeared in her account. Lara stared at her phone, feeling simultaneously triumphant and hollow. Her mother was fine, visiting relatives in Ibadan. But Ken didn't know that. Ken, who was generous and kind, who trusted his wife's best friend, had just proven he would help her without question. She sent him a long, emotional thank you message, careful to sound vulnerable but not desperate. His response was warm but brief, ending with, "Maya would do the same for anyone I cared about." The words stung. She wasn't special to him, she was just an extension of his love for Maya. That needed to change. Maya noticed the money transfer when checking their joint account. "Did you lend Lara money?" Ken explained about the hospital emergency, and Maya immediately called Lara. "Why didn't you call me? I would have come with you. How's your mother?" Lara fed her the same lies, embellishing the story with details about doctors and treatments. Maya's concern was genuine, offering to visit, to help with bills, to do anything needed. The guilt Lara felt lasted approximately 30 seconds before she remembered all the times Maya had effortlessly achieved things Lara struggled for. This was just evening the scales. But Maya's brother Femi was a different problem. He had always been protective, suspicious of people's motives in a way Maya wasn't. When he visited his sister the following week and heard about Lara's crisis, his questions were pointed. "Which hospital? What was the diagnosis?" "That's strange, I have a friend who works at LUTH, I could have helped." "It was a private clinic," Lara said quickly. Everything happened so fast. Femi's eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing more. Lara felt his gaze follow her throughout the evening, assessing, weighing. She would need to be more careful around him. The next phase required patience. Lara started planting small doubts in Maya's mind during their weekly coffee dates. Casual observations that accumulated like drops of poison in clear water. "Ken seemed stressed when I saw him last week. Is everything okay with work? I noticed Ken's been online late at night. My ex used to do that when he was, well, never mind. That woman from Ken's office Christmas party, the interior designer. I saw her at the hotel restaurant yesterday. She was asking about him." Maya laughed off the first few comments, secure in her relationship. But Lara was relentless, adding just enough detail to seem concerned rather than malicious. She knew Maya's insecurities, the old wounds from a cheating ex-boyfriend in university. Everyone had weak spots, you just needed to know where to press. The edited recording was Lara's masterpiece. She had befriended one of Ken's colleagues, a chatty woman who loved to gossip. During their lunch, Lara recorded their conversation about Ken's new client, an attractive young entrepreneur. With careful editing, removing context and rearranging sentences, she created an audio clip that sounded like Ken was flirting, making plans to meet privately. She played it for Maya during a girls' night at her apartment, her face a mask of reluctant concern. "I wasn't sure if I should show you this, but if it were me, I'd want to know." Maya's face went pale as she listened. "Where did you get this?" Someone from his office sent it to me. They know we're friends, they thought you should hear it. This doesn't prove anything, Maya said, but her voice shook. There could be context we're missing. You're probably right, Lara agreed quickly, knowing the seed was planted. I'm sure there's an explanation. Ken loves you. But over the next week, Maya became quieter, watching her husband with new wariness. Ken noticed the distance, confused by his wife's sudden coolness. The cracks were forming, exactly as Lara intended. Femi, however, was connecting dots Lara hadn't anticipated. He called Maya, asking detailed questions about Lara's mother's illness, about the timing of Lara's recent concerns about Ken. Something in his tone made Maya defensive of her friend, but also planted its own seeds of doubt. Lara knew she needed to move faster. Time to escalate. She showed up at Ken and Maya's apartment one evening when she knew Maya was at her book club. Ken answered the door in workout clothes, surprised but not alarmed. Lara was Maya's best friend, her presence wasn't unusual. Maya's not here, he said. Book club night. I know, Lara stepped inside. I came to see you. Something in her voice made Ken pause. Is something wrong? Lara moved closer, her hands shaking but her voice steady. I can't do this anymore, Ken. Pretending I don't feel what I feel. Watching you with her when it should be me. Ken's face transformed from confusion to understanding to horror in seconds. Lara, what are you? I love you, she interrupted, reaching for him. I've loved you for 3 years. I know you feel something too, the way you look at me sometimes. Stop, Ken stepped back, his voice hard. I don't know what you think you've seen, but you're wrong. Maya is my wife. I love her. Whatever you're feeling, it's not reciprocated. Lara felt humiliation burn through her like acid. You're lying. All those times we talked, the way you smiled as my wife's friend, Ken interrupted, his face flushed with anger. Nothing more. I think you need to leave. And honestly, I think you need professional help. The rejection was absolute, crushing. Lara fled the apartment, tears streaming down her face, rage and shame warring in her chest. She had miscalculated, revealed herself too soon. But if she couldn't have Ken, she would make sure Maya lost him too. The next evening, Lara invited Maya for drinks. She poured generously, encouraging her friend to vent about her marriage troubles, about her suspicions regarding Ken and his colleague. Maya, hurt and confused, drank too much and said things she wouldn't have said sober. She cried recorded about feeling insecure, about wondering if Ken still found her attractive, about fearing she wasn't enough. Lara every word. 2 days later, she called Maya. Her voice was cold, all pretense of friendship abandoned. We need to talk about Ken. What about him? He needs to leave you. And you're going to let him? Maya laughed, confused. Have you lost your mind? I have a recording of you, drunk, saying terrible things about your marriage. Things that would humiliate you if your family had them. Your church friends. His colleagues. Lara's voice was steady, mechanical. Let him go, or everyone hears how miserable you really are. The silence stretched forever. Then Maya's voice came, quiet and devastated. You're blackmailing me? Why? Because he should have been mine from the beginning, Lara said simply. You don't deserve him. Maya hung up. Lara sat in her apartment, feeling nothing. The bridge was burned, but she was too far gone to care. What Lara didn't know was that Femi had been investigating. His suspicions about the hospital story had led him to make calls, check records. No admission matched Lara's mother's name on the date specified. Then he'd contacted the colleague who supposedly sent the recording of Ken. The woman had no idea what he was talking about. Femi spent 3 days gathering evidence, retrieving deleted messages from Maya's cloud backup, tracking down the original unedited audio file of Ken's conversation. He found Lara's search history on a shared computer at Maya's house, revealing her obsessive research into Ken's schedule and habits. When he had everything, Femi arranged a dinner. He told Maya it was to clear the air, to discuss the marriage troubles openly. He convinced Ken to come despite his anger at Lara. And he invited Lara, telling her Maya wanted to reconcile. Lara arrived confident, believing she'd won. Maya and Ken sat together on one side of the table, Femi on the other. The atmosphere was cold, formal. Lara sensed something wrong but sat down anyway. "Thank you all for coming," Femi began. "I think it's time we addressed some truths." He started with the hospital records. "Lara, I checked with every hospital in Lagos. Your mother was never admitted." Lara's face went pale. "That's a privacy violation." "Your mother was in a burden with family," Femi continued calmly. "I called her yesterday. She confirmed it." He played the original, unedited audio file of Ken's conversation, showing how Lara had manipulated it. Then he showed screenshots of her search history, her obsessive tracking of Ken's movements. "You weren't just jealous," Femi said. "You systematically tried to destroy your best friend's marriage because you wanted her life." Maya was crying silently, Ken's arm around her shoulders. They both stared at Lara like she was a stranger. Lara's world collapsed. She tried to deny it, to explain, but her voice came out broken and desperate. "You don't understand. I loved him. I deserved." "You deserved nothing that wasn't freely given," Maya interrupted, her voice raw with pain. "I trusted you. I shared everything with you. And you used it all as weapons." "I gave you 300,000 naira for a fake emergency," Ken said quietly. "I trusted you because Maya loved you. And you tried to and destroy us." Lara looked between them, seeing only disgust and pity. "Maya, please, I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking clearly." "You trying to steal love, Lara," Maya said, tears streaming down her face. "You were trying to destroy what you never learned to build. Real love isn't taken. It's not manipulated into existence. What you felt wasn't love. It was obsession and envy, and it poisoned you." Lara stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Everything she'd planned, everything she'd done, had led to this moment of complete humiliation. She ran from the restaurant, the eyes burning into her back. The days that followed were a blur of isolation. Lara stopped going to work, stopped answering calls from mutual friends who'd heard what happened. She sat in her apartment, surrounded by the evidence of her delusion. Photos she'd saved of Ken, screenshots of his social media posts, notes about his preferences and habits. All of it suddenly looked insane, the obsessive collection of a stalker rather than a woman in love. Maya and Ken began the slow work of healing. They attended counseling sessions, talking through the mistrust that had infected their marriage. Maya struggled with feeling foolish or not seeing Lara's obsession sooner, for sharing so much with someone who twisted it all against her. Ken struggled with guilt for not noticing, for accepting Lara's presence without question. Femi deleted the blackmail recording, making sure no copies remained. "She's not worth holding on to," he told his sister. "Let it go." 3 weeks after the confrontation, Lara finally forced herself to look at the wreckage honestly. She deleted every photo, every note, every trace of her obsession with Ken. She stared at her empty phone gallery, at her empty apartment, at her empty life, and finally understood what she'd done. She hadn't been in love. Love wanted the other person's happiness, even if you weren't part of it. What she'd felt was a desperate need to possess, to take what someone else had because she couldn't build it herself. Maya had been right. She'd poisoned herself with envy, convinced herself that she deserved Ken because she wanted him, as if desire alone created entitlement. Lara picked up her phone, staring at Maya's number. She wanted to apologize, to explain that she understood now, but she knew no apology could undo the damage. Some betrayals were too deep to forgive. She had destroyed a friendship, nearly destroyed a marriage, and for what? A fantasy that existed only in her mind. She set the phone down and looked out her window at Lagos sprawling beneath the evening sky. Somewhere out there, Maya and Ken were rebuilding their life. Somewhere out there, people loved and trusted and built relationships on honesty rather than manipulation. Lara had watched from outside for so long, she'd forgotten how to be part of something real. The tears came then, finally, not from rage or humiliation but from genuine understanding of what she'd lost and what she'd never really had. The shadows of desire had consumed her, turned her into someone unrecognizable. And now she sat alone with the consequences, knowing that jealousy didn't steal love. It only poisoned the heart that carried it, corrupting everything it touched until nothing beautiful remained. Maya and Ken eventually moved forward, their marriage stronger for having survived the test. They didn't forgive Lara, but they didn't hold on to the anger either. They simply moved on, grateful for each other and for the loyalty of family who'd protected them. Femi remained watchful, protective, knowing that trust once broken required constant vigilance to rebuild. Lara remained alone, finally understanding that what she'd wanted wasn't Ken at all. It was the peace and contentment that Maya carried naturally, the ability to build rather than destroy, to love rather than covet. Those things couldn't be stolen or manipulated into existence. They had to be cultivated within yourself, grown from seeds of self-acceptance and genuine care for others. The lesson came too late, paid for with a friendship destroyed and a reputation ruined. But perhaps, Lara thought as she watched the sun set over the city, perhaps it wasn't too late to become someone different. Someone who could build her own happiness rather than trying to steal someone else's. The shadows of desire had shown her what she wasn't. Now she had to discover what she could become. If this story touched you, reminded you of someone, or made you think about the difference between love and obsession, do me a favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories that explore the complex, messy, beautiful reality of human relationships. Your support helps me keep creating content that matters. Until next time, remember, real love builds bridges, while jealousy burns them. Choose wisely.